What's up, guys? It's the Beast of the East podcast here on the Believe Podcast Network. Also coming at you live from Willis Digital Media. Joining me is not Craig Ladd, but in a pinch hitting situation, Craig Ladd is out sick. We hope that he has a speedy recovery. But joining me is actually the man, the myth, and the legend. He's behind the scenes on this show, but he comes at you on SEC After Dark. It is the Stephen Willis. What's up, man?
Thank you very much. I'm having a good time here. I'm getting a pinch hit. I've done Best of the West a couple of times. COVID actually got Kevin for a couple of weeks, and I pinch hit it over there. And I'm going to pinch hit over here for a little bit, and I'm going to get a nice, well-rounded thing. Normally, I produce, and I'm behind the scenes and let you guys do your thing. But I'm happy to lend whatever I can.
All right. Well, glad to have you. Our chat is up and running, as you see. We've got the tweets going right below me. You can follow all my information. You can find me at Believe in Georgia Dogs. That show, you can hit the bell, hit the notification, subscribe to us on YouTube, find us, whatever you need to do. And also, you really should be checking out the podcast too. Even if you're not a fan of Ole Miss, it's just good stuff. It really is, man. It's a good show. I find myself watching it. I'm not even that big of an Ole Miss fan, but we got our chat going. You can see some of the topics. We'll get to Joe. We'll get to Joe Milton. Kirby is definitely opening up the offense this year. Colton Gauthier. I think that's right. I hope it's right. He's got to be the starter. And then Ken Seals again. Matt Perkins is really high on him. I heard you had him on your show recently, so that's pretty good. So we are presented by betonline.ag. If you want a spot for live betting, if you want the place with the best odds, then that is the place for you. Bet online, man. And you know what? I might place, I keep saying it, right? I keep saying it, and I kept saying it. I'm going to try it out for the NBA. Okay. I did it some for college football last year, and I've done the online casino, but I'm going to do it again for college football. I think it's fun. But they have live bets during games or futures for who you think will win the championship. BetOnline has all the latest odds, news, and information for your online sports betting needs. So visit the website today or use your mobile device to join. Receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. So before that next big game, head on over to BetOnline and start playing today. BetOnline, your online sports book expert. Steve, welcome, man. I'm so glad you're here. I caught him.
Oh, you got the mouse.
I got it.
Okay. Okay. Did you get it in a trap or did you catch it? Did you shoot it? How did it go?
I caught my bazooka and just it was a sticky trap.
Sticky trap? Okay.
Yeah, sticky trap. So, yeah. Found him this morning about 3 a.m. Heard him chirping. He was stuck. Hopefully he was the only one.
I know this show is Beast of the East, but Jake Thomas, our resident Alabama fan, is on there saying we should take Alabama by 30. I'm not saying Miami's going to win the game, but that game should be a scary game to any Alabama fan.
Yeah, Bama by 30, I appreciate the confidence. I really do. But I don't think that's going to happen. Not this early. Now, if Miami caught him like week 8, I'd probably say you're right.
Yeah. By the end of the year, like the beginning of the year, I think Oklahoma should be the preseason number 1. I don't know if they'll be the number 1 team by the end of the year.
Right, but coming into the season, old Spencer Rattler, QB1. So, but yeah, I appreciate the confidence though, man. You got to love that, right?
Yeah.
So let's talk about this Alliance thing. We didn't really get much into it last night on SEC After Dark, but I woke up this morning. It's okay to be a homer, Jake. Woke up this morning, and I still think it's lame.
Oh, it's an absolute nothing burger. Nothing got done.
No.
I'm sitting here trying to work through what they were actually trying to accomplish by this, and the thing that I keep coming back to is this is simply a vehicle for Fox to destabilize the ACC and help their TV contract, and also, secondly, it'll give Fox an in for the expanded playoff, and they'll delay it or try to delay it until that can happen. That's the only thing I can think of.
Yeah, I mean, it's just them trying weird tactics to eventually bring down the SEC. I don't know. It's weird. But
I don't think they're trying to bring down the SEC. I think they realize that what's happened to the SEC, there's no catching the SEC at this point. But what they can do is affect the media, and where ESPN owns most of the leagues in the country, you can start to whittle down on that. And maybe your network of choice can give you a little bit of extra time. They can spend more time on Fox talking about the Big Ten, the ACC, and the Pac-12, because ESPN and Disney is rightly going to talk about the SEC and those matchups happening every week.
yeah, exactly. They're just trying to buy their way into some TV time, and like I said, who knows what they're trying to accomplish? I don't really know, but Brandon Helwick says, as there will be no Pac-12 lifeline for the 8 Big 12 leftovers, Texas Tech AD is confirming the Big 12 is kickstarting the expansion process. That's exciting.
Yes. The news today that the Pac-12 is not going to expand means basically the war between the American Conference and the Big 12 can truly kick off. And the winner of that is going to be either Fox or ESPN. If it's an ESPN going to win that, the teams will go over to the American. If Fox wins it, the Big 12 will continue to be a thing. As Fox tries to retain relevancy, that'll happen. So the Big 12 looking and trying to expand to Memphis, Central Florida, Cincinnati, maybe SMU or Houston or something like that. If they do that, I mean, let's face it, it's a G5 conference regardless of what happens. The American's a G5 conference, even if you add those Big 12 teams in. I think Power 5 or Autonomous 5 or whatever they're calling it now, that should be stripped away from the Big 12 no matter what happens. But it's going to come down to whether Fox or ESPN wins this, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think Fox is going to make a push because they're going to be willing to spend the money. I mean, they're already spending it on NFL, so you know they're going to try to dominate ESPN every way possible, because look at all of their sports pundits. It's basically the people that weren't good enough for ESPN. They come over to Fox, and actually, you know what? They really are kind of. I really kind of dig the Fox shows more than I do the ESPN shows. If we really got to get the brass tacks here, but you know, I think Fox is willing to spend the money. So I think the Big 12, that's very possible that you could just see the Big 12 absorb the AAC, and the AAC just completely dissolves, and some of those teams just, you know, that get left over at the bottom of the AAC will go elsewhere. But it's interesting, all this whole alliance talk, and you know, basically realigning expansions and things like that. So stay tuned, man. Buckle up.
Yeah, real quick, Jake. The 12-team playoff, the person that said it was on life support was the chancellor of West Virginia, a Big 12 chancellor. So take anything they say with a grain of salt, because they want it to be on life support at this point. So, yeah, just be careful. I still think the G5 schools, the American, the Sun Belt, Conference USA, the WAC, Mountain West, Mid-America Conference, those are the conferences, believe it or not, that are going to basically force their will on a 12-team playoff, because those guys want access and they want money, and they can't have it on a 14 playoff. But with a 12-team playoff, they can get in the tournament.
And they could probably likely get 2 spots too, if you really think about it. And lights on. So yeah, I'm excited for it. I would love a 12-team playoff. Actually, I think that'd be fun. Maybe even expand it to 16. Just go with it, man. It's like, you know, it's not too radical. I don't think that adds too much or anything like that. Not to get in the 12-team playoff discussion again, but you know, with all this realignment and people trying to get seats at the table, and really just people trying to get their hands on some cash, is really kind of where everybody's driving, because this NIL stuff is going to get super, super competitive. And if you can get some bold sponsorship money, why not, right?
Yeah, also one of the things that the Alliance actually is trying to do that is actually a fairly good idea is the quarterfinal round, the round of 12 to 4, that 4-game set there. It will be controlled by the Power 4 conferences, the SEC, the ACC, the Big Ten, and the Pac-12, to where those conferences can actually run those games and get the proceeds from them. So
Yeah,
that's a pretty good idea, and will actually save the bowls for other avenues.
yeah. I mean, I think, I mean, let's be realistic. I think you should go high school style and just have G5 have their own national championship, um, and P5 have their own. In FCS has theirs, Division two, Division three on down. They all have their own national championships. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. I think if you're going to have, because you're never, I mean, even with a 12 team playoff, you're always just going to get that first round bid, and that's it. And you're probably going to go up against Alabama or Clemson or somebody like that and get your ass handed to you. But
Well,
yeah,
well, let's workshop this a little bit. Last year, Cincinnati would have made it into the playoff, and that game would have probably been similar to Georgia, and that kick at the end of the game to allow Georgia to win, that would make Cincinnati's season. That game would have been the ultimate David versus Goliath story, but Goliath winning in the end. It was like, I don't, you didn't quite get there, but they could have. And in any other position, I mean, that's a 53-yard field goal. A college kicker making a 53-yard field goal doesn't happen very often. Cincinnati was in a position to win that game, and that could very easily have been a 10 versus 7 game or something like that.
It could have been, but that's not the norm in those situations. Cincinnati's a special team, but or they were last year. And that kicker that made that 53-yarder, he is now a scholarship player.
Oh, yeah, I'm not saying he's not good. I'm just saying in college football, 53-yard field goal is no joke.
No, I'm saying he's a walk-on. He was a walk-on then. Yeah. Now he is a scholarship player, so he's doing some things right. That's what I meant by that.
Yeah.
But so yeah, I think I think it's a good idea in a lot of senses. I also would support G5 having their own national championship so that they can have I would watch a 12-team G5 playoff. Like that would be competitive, really good football. Because you get a team from the loaded AAC, you get a team loaded from the Mountain West, and you clash them. Let's say Boise UCF in a national championship game.
Or Louisiana pops up,
or Louisiana comes knocking at the door, or like the team of the year in the MAC. That always changes. That's a competitive conference, actually. The MAC, there's a different winner every year, but I would watch that, man. Like a App State, BYU national, like a Coastal Carolina BYU national. Like that game right there was really fun. The BYU Coastal game last year. Like, just think about if that would have been the national championship for the G5. Like, that would have been, like, that. There's not, like, I'm not saying that as a downgrade. I'm saying that, like, if you want some good, competitive, made-for-TV playoff football, there you go. Like, there's some really good teams in G5, and you get some good competitive matchups, you're going to get some viewers.
Yeah, and honestly, I love that idea. But even a 12-team playoff where the whole FBS is participating in that, you still have the opportunity for somebody like Coastal Carolina to come in there and play against a Georgia, to get that opportunity to do that. And then it becomes a 116, 215 type matchup from the NCAA tournament, to where that excitement can build there. Now, those teams don't win. They lose the game 95% of the time. But the one time it comes up, the one time Virginia's there, sorry about that, Virginia, but the one time they're in there and mess up, it becomes a story for the remainder of the playoff. It becomes just, it becomes a story of the remainder of the playoff. Not this year, forever.
Yeah, no doubt. It goes down in lore, and I do like that aspect of it too. So don't get me wrong on that. Do you think Cincinnati would have made a run?
I think that first game, if they'd have gotten past that first game, they'd have had the chance to be an 8 seed probably. So like in a 12-team playoff, they'd have been an 8. So they'd have probably in that first game played a 7. So they'd have a relatively easy matchup, or even matchup in that first game. And if they get past that one, all of a sudden you have Alabama. And you have Alabama and Cincinnati, round of 8, NCAA tournament, everybody would have watched that. Because Alabama had trouble with mobile quarterbacks. Matt Corral ate them up. Desmond Ridder would have eaten them up.
Yeah, I like Desmond Ridder. He's a kid out of Louisville. So I'm all for it, but the alliance thing, that was a whole nothing burger. So let's talk quarterbacks.
Real
What do you say?
quick, Kenneth Ford. Yes, it's all about money and the Big Five. Absolutely.
Hmm. It's all about the money. It always is, always will be. Now it's just more legal to pay these kids. So
Yeah.
that's the only difference.
Yeah, the
So
funny thing is NIL has been happening for 20 years, as Jimbo said. They just didn't tell anybody about it.
yeah, like NIL happened to Eric Dickerson and Craig James at SMU. They were NIL all over the place, and they told everybody about it,
Yeah.
and they got shut down. So can you imagine, like, if they're in a major conference now? Like if I'm the Big 12, I had SMU just for the story, just for the rivalry with TCU in the same city, just for the fact that, like, I'm gonna try to get as much of the Southwest Conference as I can.
Absolutely. You get Houston, you get Rice from Conference USA. You get SMU in there. You rebrand the Big 12 because you want that nightclub thing of rebranding. You call it the Southwest Conference again. You don't have Texas. You don't have Texas A&M. You don't have Arkansas. That doesn't happen. But you have a true Southwest Conference again, and just go from there. It could be pretty special if you just embrace the niche. Don't
Do
try
it.
to be something that you're not. Just embrace the niche. Be a Texas conference, a Texas Central conference, and make the best that you can do. It'll be good football.
Yeah,
I mean,
it would be. I think there's some good rivalries there, some good competitive matchups. I mean, you're obviously not the Big Ten, Pac-12, SEC, or ACC, but you're kind of in that purgatory between P5 and G5, which is kind of a tough place to be. But you're going to get some competitive rivalries like Houston, SMU, TCU, Tech, Baylor. You'll still have the Kansas schools. You'll still have Iowa State. You'll still have West Virginia in the mix, and then you throw in a Memphis to kind of add another kind of Eastern team there, and then you're good to go. Like, I think you're in good shape there. I think there's some good up and coming programs in the American that could really thrive in the Big 12. So, I mean, do it.
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
So, all right, QBs, right?
Right. Let's do it.
All right, so last night we talked a little bit about the Tennessee quarterback situation. They haven't officially named Joe Milton the quarterback. They're being very tight-lipped, and I don't know why, because it's going to be Joe Milton.
Yep.
Like, we all know it, right?
He's going to win the
And
job.
he's going to win the job. I mean, everything you read, it's like Joe Milton, Joe Milton, Joe Milton, Joe Milton, Joe Milton, Joe Milton. Oh, and Hendon Hooker and Harrison Bailey got a few reps too. That's like the stories, right? That's the storylines, and I don't know why they're being so mum about it. Just go ahead and name them QB1. Let's get it over with, because you got Bowling Green rolling into town Thursday. We're going to talk a little bit about that as well, and you got Bowling Green rolling into town, and you got to have a starting quarterback named. I mean, Joe Milton is the guy. I talked about last night that I'm surprised that he fits into Josh Heupel's offense, because I just thought his skill set and what Josh Heupel asked his quarterbacks to do at UCF weren't exactly the same. But maybe there's a whole new dimension that he's got, or maybe there's a whole skill set that I don't know about Joe Milton. And so we started to dive into, and then ADD radio took over, but we kind of started to dive into, like, diagnosing Joe Milton's problems. Like, why did he struggle at Michigan? And was it an inconsistent scheme of a combination of Josh Gaddis and Jim Harbaugh trying to put something together? Was it Joe Milton just not comfortable yet? Was it because he didn't get a bunch of reps due to COVID, a weird COVID season? There's a lot of things you can point to, but one of the things you can't point to is he's beat these other two guys out at Tennessee.
Yeah, and in Michigan, I do think it's a weird thing with Josh Gaddis and Jim Harbaugh, to where Gaddis has a certain way that he wants to do something, and that doesn't mesh with what Harbaugh wants to do. So Harbaugh is constantly tinkering with the offense, and I always talk about Kirby putting his thumb on the offense. His thumb is always going to be on the offense. That's his baby. He's an offensive coach and everything, and he's got a little bit of an ego. It's probably hard to take.
A little bit.
Yeah, it's probably hard to take. It's like, hey,
Yeah.
we respect you. We want you to be We want you to be our head coach, but we don't want your offense, which is everything that he built his career on. So, I think that a lot of that pro style stuff happened. That Dan Marino, John Elway, mid '80s type stuff that Harbaugh grew up, the Bo Schembechler stuff. That's what he's going to ask his quarterbacks to do. That's the reason Shea Patterson struggled up there. Because if you can't do that and struggle doing that, you're not going to succeed in that offense. Josh Heupel does not ask his quarterback to do that. We're talking a bunch of 1 and 2 read stuff, and a lot of times the first read is going to happen because the play is going to be designed for that to happen.
Yeah, exactly. And there's some RPOs built in there too as well, and that's kind of like the progression of what that offense is like. And it's very fast-paced, and it's very friendly for quarterbacks that can escape the pocket because you're spreading guys out, and you're getting these run lanes. So I think it's very conducive to an athletic quarterback. Like I think Shea Patterson would have killed at Tennessee last year. Like I think if they had this situation last year at Tennessee, and I think they would have been maybe a little bit better because they had some guys around them. Like just think if there was a legitimate quarterback there throwing the ball to Josh Palmer and handing the ball to Eric Gray and Ty Chandler. Like think how much better they probably would have been just with that simple fact alone if they would have had a legitimate quarterback and or if they would have given a legitimate shot to Harrison Bailey. I mean, I think he did some good things, but they just never really seemed to give him a shot because I think it got to a certain point where Pruitt was like, yeah, if this guy comes in and does well, I'm going to look like an idiot, and I don't want to look like an idiot. And his ego kind of got in his way a little bit.
Yeah, and I think with Jeremy Pruitt, he fell into that trap that old school coaches fall into, and that is that our offense is so complex a freshman can't pick it up. Our offense is so complex a freshman can't pick it up. And eventually that becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, so that freshman is not going to perform at the level that he could have done because he's not expecting to do it. And in Pruitt's offense, I mean, there's a lot of that old-timey football stuff that just messes with the psychology of a quarterback. And Harrison Bailey came in essentially with his hands tied because he didn't think he was going to be able to do that well because nobody could. So I really just hate it. When I hear a coach say he's a true freshman and he can't pick our system, it just makes me cringe all over because – I mean, you're hurting the quarterback there. You're disproportionately talking about your system because if it's that complicated with the 20-hour rule, they shouldn't be doing it anyway.
Yeah, and it's a disservice to the team because you've got a guy like Jerry Garantano who's proven that he can't get the job done. He's proven that he's going to turn the ball over at inopportune times. He's like that roach you try to kill and you just can't. He just keeps coming back. Like he has a bad game after bad game after bad game. Then all of a sudden he has a string of passes where you're like, where did that come from? And then you believe in him again, and then boom, he lets you down again. Like that's his MO. And I hate to say that about a kid, but that's just kind of the way it was. That's the way it went for him. Right, wrong, or indifferent, that's just the way it was. And for them to keep trotting him out there, I think the team saw that as, okay, this is not good. Like we can't do this, and we can't support this. And guys are like, man, if this is the way it's going to be, like, best guy's not playing. Like I don't get this, and so they just kind of fell off, and I don't blame them one bit. So, and Harrison Bailey lost confidence in the system. I mean, you bring in Jim Chaney, you just I don't get why he's still getting offensive coordinator jobs because, he's shown that he's going to be remarkably mediocre.
Let me show you something.
Oh no, he's dusting it off.
Do you know what this is?
That's the old Cutcliffe offense.
That's the old David Cutcliffe offense from back in the day. That's from 2000. This is actually Mike McIntyre when he was a wide receivers coach, playbook when he was at Ole Miss. There's about 600 pages in this binder for the offense. This would not fly today. You cannot go fast and be this complicated.
No, you can't.
And if you try to teach this system in modern football, you're going to get fired. Period. You're going to get beat, and then you're going to get fired.
Yeah, and even Cutcliffe, I mean, give Cut all the credit in the world. He figured that out, and he simplified, and he kind of got with the times, and that's why he was good at Duke. And he's struggling a little bit now at Duke just because it's Duke and it's hard to recruit there. But and I think Cutcliffe's at the end of his rope, and he's getting ready to retire, and you know how that goes. But I love Cut. He's a great coach.
Yeah,
but,
fantastic. Run through a brick wall for him.
And you know, I think the only two quarterbacks to have done well under Jim Chaney are Drew Brees and Jake Fromm. And Jake Fromm even regressed in that offense. So what does that tell you?
Yeah, it was almost a surprise that he did well his freshman year whenever they kept things simple for him. It was another situation where that offense was too complicated, mixed with Kirby just like, hey, we're up 17-10. We need to keep it.
Well, you have 2 first-round running backs in the backfield. You know that kind of fuels that fire. But I mean, he made plays when he had to, and turned and handed off to Sony and Chubb when he didn't have to. So that was kind of a perfect storm of like the perfect roster for that team. Like Jim Chaney kind of struck lightning in a bottle there with that whole deal.
That Rose Bowl was legit, though, man. That Oklahoma game was fantastic.
It was, man. It was so much fun. I was like this though, watching it, man. I was like the start of it. I was pissed. I was like, oh no, this is bad. So, but I mean, you got to be able to digest the system. You got to be able to do well, and I think that's been a breath of fresh air for Todd Monken. I mean, to see that you have a legitimate battle for the number 2 quarterback position, because obviously JT's number 1. JT picked it up fairly well transferring in. He picked it up pretty easily. Brock Vandegrift, Carson Beck have picked it up really easily. I don't want to say easily, but they've picked it up enough to have confidence to be that number 2 guy if JT goes down. So I mean, you have quarterbacks battling out. Just think about Justin Fields in a Todd Monken system would have been scary. Justin Fields, like if you want to go back to that situation, that was dug up. That whole deal with that the whole dead horse was dug up and beaten some more when them 2 faced off at the preseason, Bills versus Bears. And to be honest, I don't think Jake Fromm would have done. I don't think Justin Fields would have done well at Georgia, because I don't think the system would have allowed him to.
Yeah, it would have been like Joe Milton at Michigan.
I think it would have been it was a bad fit.
Yeah.
It was a bad fit. Now, if it was Todd Monken, I think Fields would have beat him out and we'd be singing a different tune. I mean, Fields is a better quarterback than Fromm, but Fromm was the best system for Fromm. And then when Chaney moved on and they had the other dude, James Coley, calling plays for a year, that would have been a disaster for Fields. And he probably wouldn't have got drafted in the first round. It would have been a disaster. So I think Fields made the right move.
Yeah, he made the right call. Yeah.
I hate to say it. I was upset when he left, but and I was upset of kind of how he left, but I understand why he left. I understand what he was going after. And he got a great opportunity at Ohio State, an offense that fit him. And, you know, Ryan Day is a top-notch coach. I like what he does. And so, I mean, he benefited. I mean, good for Justin, right?
Not to be beast of the Big Ten, but that Kevin Wilson offense, what he used to do in the mid-2000s at Oklahoma, that stuff mixed with the stuff that Urban Meyer does has been a fantastic fit for that offense. It really has.
Yeah, I mean, it's really like it's kind of the best of both worlds. It's very fast-paced, RPO-based. They've kind of molded a lot of the option game into the RPO world to kind of modernize it, so you're not really running the quarterback as much. He's really just making dual and triple reads, or second level, third level, first level RPO reads now, instead of pulling the ball and running it in different various option scenarios. And it's been really, really good for these Ohio State quarterbacks. And yeah, I think with Justin Fields, he's going to be really good in the pros because of it, because the pros is more of that system now than what he used to do when he was at Utah and Florida and stuff like that. Like it's a more pro-ready offense. So, and Ryan Day has really kind of put his spin on it, which is even better.
Yeah, yeah. It's Ohio State, and 13 other guys in that league. They're just completely Texas and Oklahoma and it are in the Big 12. Away from the rest of the competition. Michigan is just Michigan. Like I said, Michigan, Tennessee, and Nebraska. They're the same program. They're the exact same program.
It's bad. I got to give some love to Wisconsin. They're actually a very competitive team in the Big Ten. They give Ohio State a lot of times, sometimes not, but a good bit of time as well. They give Ohio State all they can handle. But
looking forward to Whiskey versus Illinois. I want some old time 10-3 football.
Yes. So, I mean, you better tune in early because that thing's going to end fast. That thing's going to end really fast. But Colton Gauthier, speaking of fast, I don't know if he's fast, but I needed a transition there. But that quarterback battle, Luke Doty, we talked about it a little bit last night. Luke Doty just doesn't do it for me. Like, he's a good leader. I think he's got some of the intangible stuff that you look for in a quarterback, but I just don't. As far as like just playing the position, I don't think he's the guy.
Yeah, I don't think so either. Luke Doty is either a guy that in 10 years ago would have been moved to tight end, and now is probably going to look to transfer out the door, and he'll end up someplace like Liberty or Coastal Carolina and run those quirky offenses that he would be able to do. That would be a better fit for him. Now, we don't know what Shane Beamer's going to do offensively. We haven't seen it. We need to see them line up. Are they going to be what Lincoln Riley does at Oklahoma? Are they going to be what his daddy was at Virginia Tech? Are they going to be like when he was at Mississippi State or Spurrier? Who knows what they're going to be like, and who knows the right fit? All I do know is this. 2 quarterbacks last year was at the top of the board for Ole Miss. Luke Altmaier and Colton Gauthier. So if Lane Kiffin knows that guy can play, that guy can play.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's, he's got to win that battle. Like, and that's one that they haven't really decided on either. I don't know what they're waiting on, but I think you gotta look at that and say, this has got to be far and away what our quarterback situation is going to be. Are they going to try to roll it over into the Eastern Illinois game on Saturday to kind of use it as another live evaluation? I don't know. Like, I think that'd be stupid.
I think this is what I think is happening. I think that as long as Luke Doty is hurt, they don't want to do it. They don't want to Wally Pipp him. They want him to come back and Colton Gauthier to be named when he's fully healthy. Because if they name while Luke Doty's hurt and that excuse is there, Luke Doty's gone. He's out the door.
Yeah, he's got to be, and he's going to be out the door anyway, right? I mean, and Zeb Nolan coming from grad assistant, is he going to win the starting battle? No, he's probably not.
No.
But
he's a service team body.
Yeah, he has some highlights though. He has some highlights. I think it's, I don't know, like, it's weird, right? It's weird how they're handling this.
Yeah, South Carolina, everybody thought they were going to hire Billy Napier. Honestly, they didn't have the money for Billy Napier. If you look around the people that made changes last year, except for Auburn, because they were willing to go in the hole to do it, they went cheap. They went assistants. They tried to do something. It was one of those situations where they fired their current coach. It was like, well, we are out of money after paying that buyout. So what do? Well, we go get Steve Sarkisian. We go get Shane Beamer. Go get the best option you can get, because somebody like Billy Napier, you couldn't afford him. You couldn't afford to get him. And doing that means that this year is going to look a little bit weird in some places. And one of those places is going to be Columbia, South Carolina.
It's going to look really weird because, the pedigree that Shane Beamer has, he's never been a coordinator. Not saying that means he's going to be a bad head coach, but like you skip a step in the progression, like you got to struggle, right?
Ed Orgeron at Ole Miss. He came from defensive line coach to head coach.
But then you also look at Dabo Swinney, wide receiver coach to
Yeah. Yeah.
to interim to now he's winning national championships. So I mean, you could either be Dabo or you could be Ed O. I don't think there's ever any. I don't think there's ever been any in betweens. I think it's either like this dude was like a legendary coach or this dude flopped. And most of them are this dude flopped because like to run in college football and even in the NFL to be a coordinator is basically like being a sub head coach. Like you're a head coach of one branch of the tree, whereas the head coach is the head coach of the entire tree. The offensive, defense, and even special teams coordinators, to a certain degree, are head coaches of their branch, and you know, it's like for you to just skip a step in that climb to the top is just it's odd, and there's a whole lot of things that he's dealing with that he's probably never even had like that you would get a taste of as a coordinator even. He's got no experience with that stuff, and so he's just going to struggle with the rigors and demands of being a head coach, outside of the game of football.
Yeah, it's conversations he's never had. Also, Jake, believe it or not, I can answer that question about UAB. Bill Clark wants an Alabama pension as a state employee. He's real close to that. That's the very reason that whenever they shuttered the UAB football program, he kept his job at UAB, even though they didn't have football, because he was trying to get that pension. So he's limited to where he was willing to go to the state of Alabama. Now, who would that be? Would that be Troy? Would that be a step down? South Alabama, a step down. He's not getting the Alabama job. Nick Saban's doing that. He's not getting the Auburn job. So it becomes where's he going to go?
Exactly. That you hit the nail right on the head. He's not getting either the two power jobs in that, and anything else would be a step down with what he's done at UAB. And South Alabama would almost be one slight notch above going to McGill-Tulane High School.
Yeah.
It's not, there's no situation in the state of Alabama where you're going to win if unless you go to the two big boys, So you're either at Troy. Troy's a good job. Yeah. But, lateral doesn't make much sense.
Yeah. South Alabama is like one step above North Alabama.
Yeah. Like North Alabama's Division II, I think.
Yeah, no. I am aware.
Okay, yes. So that's why on that scenario, Jake. But yeah, I think it's just for Shane Beamer, he's like this whole situation, like I don't think he's handling it very well. I think, I thought he did okay at SEC Media Days, but I don't know. Like it's going to be a struggle for him. And what's going to happen? Like they're not used to losing, so
you have to go back to Lou Holtz whenever they put the 0 on the board for wins. That was what? Yeah. When was that? Probably 2003.
I think it was 2000.
2000, somewhere around there.
It was right before I graduated high school.
Yeah.
Okay. I think it was the 2001 season, maybe. I think it was right as I was graduating. I think they went 0-12. Then I had my senior year of high school. They won a couple of games and made a big deal about it. Because one of my former teammates played up there. He signed and played at South Carolina. He went through that whole deal, that whole ordeal, and he played. He was a starting. He was the. This is how weird this is. Like at the right tackle position. They started. They made a decision to start week in and week out depending on who the defensive end was. If it was a fast guy, they'd start my former teammate. If it was like a, big overpowering dude, they'd start this other guy. So,
let's see. Was that the time when they had? Did they have Dondriel Pinkins at that point? Was he the quarterback then?
Yeah. So it was weird. Like my teammate always started against Florida because they would go against what's his name, Alex. What is it?
Oh, I know who you're talking about.
He wore 13.
Yeah, I know exactly who you're talking about, but I can't
Play,
remember
play,
his name.
played in the NFL for a long time. Played for the Bears for a while.
Jake, do you know that? So,
So yeah. Anyway, he would start against him every year, and he actually held his own. But getting back to the quarterback situation, like, come on, it's Colton Gauthier, right?
yeah,
It's
it
got
has to be Gauthier
yeah,
or
uh,
Gauthier.
Gauthier, Gauthier. Yeah. Well, we got to wait till they announce it, so we learn how to pronounce it.
Yeah,
So looking at the other quarterback situations are pretty settled. Obviously, Kentucky did the right thing and went ahead and named their QB1. They could have drugged that whole thing out, but they didn't. They went ahead and decided that Will Levis was in fact the guy, which is what they should have done. Like if you know, go ahead and pull it. Go ahead
yeah.
and do it.
Other than eating a banana like a psychopath, I mean, he's the right guy for the job.
Yeah, I mean that's weird, but
Yeah,
but if you know, go ahead and do it. Go ahead and name it. Go ahead and pull the trigger. Will Levis. They were very decisive on that. Tennessee, although they won't say it, but all their actions speak to how decisive they are in Joe Milton. So I don't really hold that against them. They're not really saying it, which is weird, but they're decisive. You can tell by the reps.
Tennessee, I know why they're doing this because the Pittsburgh game in week 2 is their season, their chance for a bowl game. So they're going to harm Pittsburgh any way they can. And by not announcing the quarterback and not announcing what's going on, they can't prepare for the quarterback because him and Hendon Hooker and then Harrison Bailey has 3 completely different styles of guys. If you have to prepare for all of them, you can't prepare for any of them.
That is very, very true. And part of me also thinks Tennessee is going to try to get all those guys reps. They're going to try to play more than one guy.
I only saw that work once, and that was like Jesse Palmer and who was he? Terry Dean, maybe? Was it Terry Dean and Jesse Palmer?
No, it was Rob Johnson, I think, wasn't it?
Yes, yeah. Yeah, that's the only time I've ever seen that work, and that's just because Florida had better players than everybody else.
Yeah, I mean, I could have played quarterback for that Florida team. I mean, it was God Almighty, like nobody could get to them.
Do you know Florida was the last team to win their first national championship? Win the national championship and it be their first, and that was way back in like 1995. That's 25 years of teams that have won it before winning it again.
Wow. Mm-hmm. Wow. Look at you with these interesting fun facts.
Yeah.
Okay, everybody get your notebooks out again. Write that fact down because that's going to win you trivia too.
Yeah. Absolutely.
You're going to look.
Florida was the last team to win their first national championship.
Wow. Okay.
So.
There you go. So, let's look ahead, right? What do you say?
Yeah, let's go ahead. Let's talk a little Tennessee and Bowling Green. Let's talk about the Falcons. I don't know anything about the Falcons other than their color scheme is just god awful. Anybody that chooses actually to have the Cleveland Browns color scheme, they should be stoned.
They really, really, should.
It's terrible.
Yeah, and the Cleveland Browns should be the only team rocking that. So let's give a little tail of the tape. I mean, we've talked ad nauseum about Tennessee and what they bring to the table, which is really kind of not much. But so let's look at Bowling Green, right? They were 0-5 in the MAC. They played 5-game MAC schedule. Scott Loeffler, in his third year, has an astounding record of 3-14.
Ooh.
Yeah. They were supposed to bring the offense. They haven't been able to do that. The D has been worse. It was this is about as bad as it gets, right? They averaged 326 yards and 11 points per game. I'm trying to find some good news here. I'm struggling. But they're a team that, for whatever reason, they play hard. I guess they try, but they're just not very good. They have a tackle, Joe Ware, Um, he's looking to transfer. They lost their center to Western Kentucky. They have a young offensive line, which is going to be a disaster. Running back Andrew Chair left for Northwestern, but Terrion Stewart is coming back. He led the team with okay, this is not a joke. He led the team with 295 yards and 4 touchdowns. Um, and he had all of the touchdowns scored by that position.
Whew.
You're overhauling the receiving core. Quentin Morris is at tight end. The top 2 wideouts, Julian Ortega-Jones, he transferred. Noah Massey transferred. 6'4" redshirt freshman Tyrone Broden. He is leading that group. So that's who's left. You have Matt McDonald. He became this is terrible. He became the best of the quarterback. He listen to this completion percentage. I'm not lying when I say this. 44% of his passes.
Ooh.
With a touchdown and 6 interceptions. I think they get a transfer, Drew Gunther from Syracuse, 6'3", 220.
So he's going to win the job? He
if
better?
If he's breathing, if he can fit into the uniform.
Good grief.
So that's offense. That's the offense, ladies and gentlemen. Bowling Green.
Yeah, and the defense of Tennessee is supposed to be the weak spot, but you make it sound like I don't know how they're going to score.
They're not.
Yeah. So that means Jake Thomas said Tennessee is a 34.5-point favorite. And I did say earlier this week that I wasn't sure that Tennessee was 34 points better than anybody.
Well, I'm about to tell you why they're 34 points better. All right. The defense had just one takeaway.
Ooh.
They were the worst run defense in the nation. Statistically, the pass defense was good, but teams ran for 310 yards per game. So people weren't throwing much on them. So their sample size was a little bit smaller. They lost 3 of their best players. Roland Walder, he was the leading playmaker. He's gone. Let's see. Positives. Oh, okay. Let's see what some positives are. 6 foot 235 sophomore linebacker Darren Anders. He's coming back. He's a hitter. He led the team in tackles, right? It's a young group. There's no beef up front. They're looking for a pass rusher. 3 of the 4 secondary starters are back, outside of the one that transferred. They're missing Caleb Biggers at a corner, but the team didn't come up with an interception.
Good grief! I guess this is just a weird COVID thing, because it kind of bit Ole Miss defensively last year too.
They're just not good.
It's one of those things where the coach is going to come out against Tennessee and tell everybody, hey, they're on scholarship too, and you're going to say, how?
Yeah, like with Ole Miss, like you could tell with Ole Miss that, as crazy as it was and as many jokes as there were to be had at the expense of the Ole Miss defense, like you could tell that, like, had they had a regular offseason to work on tackling and running to the ball and overall scheme things, they would have been just fine. Yeah. Bowling Green has no talent.
Yeah, it's just, how does that happen? Maybe Scott. Did you say Scott Loeffler was his name?
Yeah, Loeffler.
Yeah, Loeffler. Maybe he just isn't an organized guy. Maybe he's in over his head as a head coach.
He's got to be.
Because they went 3-9, and then they went 0-4 or 0-5.
Yeah, I don't see I don't see how he, obviously he did well enough somewhere as an offensive coordinator to get this job. He was at Auburn at one point in his career, but how could they be this bad at offense? Like, you're a Division I college. Like, how can you not? You're a Division I college in Ohio.
Yeah, I guess Scott Loeffler would have been a Tommy Tuberville assistant. Maybe Gene Chizik the 1 year after Gus Malzahn left.
Yeah, like
somewhere in there.
But I'm gonna say this again. Like, you're a Division I school in Ohio. Like it ain't like you're in Massachusetts where there's like no talent. It's not like you're in Connecticut where like the top 15 the only 15 guys that can play Division I football are all going to Penn State and Michigan. You're in Ohio. Like, the leftovers in Ohio are pretty damn good.
Yeah, I mean, it's a populous state.
It's a good high school football state. Like, how can you not recruit better?
Now,
like, you're in control of that.
Yeah, you absolutely are.
Like, I mean, I don't get it. You're a Division I college, not to go around the MAC. Yeah. This is the Maction podcast. But,
yeah. I'd listen to that, by the way.
No, I would totally listen to that.
Maction and the Fun Belt. Yeah, I would absolutely listen to that.
Absolutely. That would be. Oh man, maybe Beast of the East. Maybe we should go to Maction and Fun Belt. No. Maybe we could have a segment on Maction and Fun Belt.
Yeah, we might have to do that.
I'll make sure that in our picks we include some action and some Fun Belt games.
Yeah, Tuesday night in November. Let's do it.
Let's do it. So Tuesday night football. But yeah, I mean, that to get an idea of this is a confidence built. I say all of that about Bowling Green to say that Tennessee is going to have some confidence going into this Pittsburgh game. Like, they have no choice to.
Yeah, so, from everything you said, I look at this and I think 45-10 Tennessee, which would be a cover, I do believe.
Yeah, like, I'm not touching this game with a 10-foot pole.
Yeah. But I think they're going to score. I think Joe Milton is going to do different things. Basically, like I said, this style of offense, if you are a Tennessee fan, it tortures linebackers. It's designed to torture linebackers. They can't be right. And you get them moving. All you have to do is get them moving. They can be right a couple of times. You get them moving to what they're doing, and all of a sudden it just opens up what you can do. And with a defense that's already struggling and with no confidence, I mean, that's a recipe for a 50-burger.
Absolutely. Well, let's I think it's bad in Bowling Green. So now let's go to Shark Humper territory. Missouri takes on Central Michigan. We can look ahead a little bit on that because we're going to obviously focus a lot on the Clemson Georgia game next week, next week's episode, and we gotta talk schedule wise on next week's episode because it's gonna be kind of helter skelter because I have a Thursday game, and so my podcast schedule is going to be getting disrupted a little bit. But I think with Central Michigan, now that becomes an interesting game now because, Jim McElwain, the Shark Humper, when he comes back off vacation and puts his clothes back on, they're actually pretty good. He is 55-37 overall. He's 8-6. He's 8-6 in his stint at Central Michigan. 3-3 overall last year. The Chippewas they're an interesting team because they're slowly on the rise. The offense was able to run well. They were able to steadily score. There weren't a whole lot of There were a lot of big problems on third downs. That's where they struggled. They had a hard time overcoming a struggling defense on the other side, meaning that their defense was letting teams score at will, and they had a hard time keeping up because they were so inconsistent, and they were bad on third down. They have 11 starters coming back with a few key transfers. That's always good. Daniel Richardson, a short quarterback, but he throws the ball well. He's 64% on his throws. He had 769 and 4 scores with just 2 interceptions in 6 games. With a team that probably didn't throw as much as everybody else in their conference, but Khalil Pimpleton He's a former Virginia Tech transfer. He comes in, immediately becomes the number one target there. He's not John Leggett wouldn't like him because he's not a deep threat.
Well, obviously.
But you have Ja'Cory Sullivan, Dallas Dixon also in the mix as some pass catchers there. The line struggled. The O line, they're more of a run based offensive line. They do really well in the run game. They have trouble pass protecting, but that's okay. They're a team that they return. They had an all-conference tackle, Derek Smith. They have 5 starters expected back, so they can only go up. This is kind of like a lot of experience coming back. So they're like the Ole Miss defense. Like all they can do is really go up. And when you look at the Chippewa defense, they're expecting 10 starters back over there, right? But you're bringing back 10 starters off a putrid defense. Is that really beneficial?
Yeah.
Or not?
Yeah. Yeah. Whenever you play the returner starter games, but the defense wasn't good the year before, that's all that means you're bringing back a bad defense.
Do you really want those starters again? But you also look at the flip side of that coin, Steve, and say, well, you can look at it through the Ole Miss lens. Well, we got a bunch of starters coming back off a bad defense, but they've got a year of seasoning now.
Yeah, if you look at Ole Miss's defense to bring them back, there's 5 guys that are now backups because new starters have come in. So that's a backup group that has played a ton of football. That's a little bit of a different story, but I mean they completely replaced the middle of that defense.
Yeah, and either way you look at it, you've got some guys now with some experience, and you got some rotational guys that are going to get important minutes somewhere down the road are all coming back. So that's in a way that's good, but in a way also, again, who knows? Like if you were horrendous on defense, I don't know that I want 10 starters coming back. I want to replace some of those guys. So when you look at this matchup, obviously it's an interesting one. You have a team that's good at running the ball. Missouri, again, they had their own defensive struggles, but then again, Connor Basilick is somebody that I think is going to have an absolute awesome time against this defense because they are so bad against the pass. I think you're going to see big numbers from Missouri. This is going to be one of those games where Missouri's going to struggle a little bit early, just trying to get some things going. You're going to have a Central Michigan team that's playing really, really hard in the first quarter, and they're going to give them some fits, and they're going to give them some looks that they probably haven't seen before. And there's going to be guys that make plays, and you're looking at it going, wait, who is this guy? And then about right before halftime, there's going to be a couple haymakers thrown by Missouri, and the game's going to be busted wide open. But that's kind of how I see this going. Like Central Michigan's like one of those pesky MAC teams that you really don't want to play ever because they're just going to give you fits all day.
Yeah, absolutely. I have Missouri winning this game by probably 2 touchdowns. Connor Bazelak reminds me of a freshman Matt Corral. So with seasoning, I mean, they have really good things to come. And I'm curious to see what year 2 will look like for him. I think Missouri should win this game and fairly easily.
Yeah, I mean, Missouri is only 13-point favorites in this,
yeah.
So that should tell you a little bit about what Central Michigan's bringing back, the level of coaching they have. I think a lot of where Central Michigan is getting some credit is in coaching with Jim McElwain. Like he's getting a little bit more respect. Scott Loeffler is not. Scott Loeffler's they're basically like surprised that he's still there, but I think they're longing for the days of Dino Babers at Bowling Green. So, but you look at Central Michigan team, they should be a little bit more competitive in the MAC conference this year. That's usually like the MO of MAC teams is outside of like a couple of programs in the MAC is like it's like the NFC South, right? There's a different team that wins the conference every year, and you have no idea what's going to happen year in and year out. So And have no idea how that conference is going to shake up from year to year. But you know that Central Michigan is always going to be pretty solid, and they're going to be solid again this year. So that's going to be one of those, like, outside of Alabama, Miami, Louisville, Ole Miss, UCLA, LSU, and Clemson, Georgia. The Missouri Central Michigan game is probably the most interesting when you step outside of those games.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, Dark Sage 9117. Yeah, you're a diehard Army fan, and I've noticed over the last few years there seems to be a lot more respect and honesty when teams play us in Navy, and they tend, from my experiences, to be much more conservative with Army and Navy than they are against any other team. I'm curious, as a fan of the Service Academy School, why do you guys think that is? Is there a certain level of respect the university has towards Navy and Army? Yes, there's a certain level of respect teams have whenever they suit up against Army and Navy. Also, I believe their schemes are different enough that forces team to respect what they're doing, even if you don't necessarily respect the athlete in front of you as an athlete, as a football player. What they're actually doing is it's going to cause a little bit of fear in you, a little bit of respect in you. But yes, there will always be a respect level with the service academies.
Yeah, I mean, you got to respect them because they're good enough to beat you if you don't. Like Navy made that abundantly clear. Like before Navy went on their run with Ken Niumatalolo, teams were it's just a service academy. We'll 50-piece them and move on. Now it's like, okay, like these teams are for real. Like Navy beat a few people in the late 2000s, early 2010s. Like Jake Thomas said, Army took Oklahoma to the brink a few years ago with Jeff Monken, and these teams aren't pushovers anymore. And there's some athletes that go to these service academies that are really good and they fit really well into these schemes. And you're seeing these service academies play their ass off. Like Army, like I know you're a Navy guy, Steve, but
Yeah.
watching Army play football is fun. Like they're not like, and I think Navy to a certain degree is starting to evolve a little bit too, but they've taken this like triple option niche system, they've expanded it and modernized it and give it some different looks and gone from under center to gun and to putting people in all different types of spots. And so it's a lot of fun to watch now because those offenses have become much more dynamic. And when you prepare for them, it's a lot more difficult because they have those same triple option principles, but now they're doing it from different formations and sometimes even like base formations that you would get from spread teams. And it makes it really difficult. So you almost have to respect them, and I do. And Dark Sage, you're an Army guy. I'm not saying I really like Army right now because you're commenting on our thread here, but I was a big Jeff Monken fan when he was at Georgia Southern. I thought he did tremendous work at Georgia Southern. I thought he earned that Army job, and I thought he was a perfect fit for that. I'm a huge Ken Niumatalolo fan too. I just think he's a class act, and the way he runs his program, and the way that they play and compete is, you have to respect them because they're a competitive American Athletic Conference team. So,
and also their uniform game, both of them, is strong, absolutely strong. Yeah, but great questions, and yes, it is about rivalry and competition, and it's going to be a little bit different with the service academies. It's not going to be necessarily as mean-spirited because, all honesty, with the service academies, they're all on your team. There is no rivalry.
No.
So, yeah, I mean, as somebody that roots for Navy, actively roots for Navy, was in the Navy, I understand whenever I see that Army-Navy game, hey, they're all teammates, even though they're playing against it. It's just a different level of competition.
It's an intense rivalry on that day, but at the end of the day, when they're out there firing bullets in wartime, they're all on the same team. And we appreciate them just as equally, and they do great things for this country, and they do great things for the sport of college football too. So you can't discount that. And they do bring that rivalry aspect to it that's a lot of fun. It's a fun rivalry because you have these schools, they're dressed up in their uniforms, and they're just going crazy for their teams. And it's a lot of fun to watch. And the pageantry and all the traditions that they have marching in and things like that. It's just a lot of fun.
College football doesn't become what it is today without Army and Navy back in the 30s and 40s, 50s, that time frame. That pageantry bled over to other things. Rivalries were built. Next thing you know, you have what we have here, and it's all because of those service academies.
Yeah, exactly. So, but Steve, we're nearing the close end of it. You're the man with the clock, so you tell me when to shut up. But looking ahead, there's an interesting slate of games next week. We will dive into each game in the SEC East and just kind of tell you what the expectations are. Which, looking at the slate, there ain't much expectation outside of 2 games here in this division. But we're going to give you some storylines for these games. We're going to pick all of the conference games as well, just to be fun and probably look at the national slate and pick that one. But before we go, Steve, Nebraska or Illinois, who are you going with?
I think Nebraska's going to win. I'm actually rooting for Illinois. I'm actually a fun, huge Burt guy, and I just enjoy rooting for Brett Bielema for whatever reason. I actually enjoyed him when he was in Arkansas. So I'm going to root for Illinois, and their new uniforms are just fire, just straight fire.
Mm-hmm. They do, like, the navy blue and orange color scheme is top notch, and so for that I like them. Burt Bielema is a great fit in the Big Ten. Not so great fit at Arkansas. That's okay though. He learned that the hard way, but he had to learn, right? Was good for Wisconsin, but just good for him to be back in the Big Ten where he belongs, with an Illinois program that desperately needs some resurrecting, and I think they get it because, let's be honest, Nebraska is a tire fire. I don't think Nebraska wins this game. I think you're going to see Illinois win this game, or at least cover. And things are going from bad to worse.
Line started at 10. It's down to 6.5, I believe.
Yeah, I mean it's getting pretty tight. So Nebraska fans are worried and should be. So, but we're gonna wrap up right there.
Okay.
I'm interested. I'm not really. It's obvious who's going to win the UCLA Hawaii game, but I think that's going to be interesting to watch in the nightcap with UCLA, just seeing what they bring to the table, getting ready for that LSU game next week. But this was fun, man. I'm glad you were able to pinch hit. Glad we were able to get some more people on the chat. Dark Sage, thank you, Jake, as always. Our co-producer Jake Thomas, bringing up the topics. Everybody else that participated in the chat, we appreciate it. Give us a follow, give us a like, subscribe. All of our information, you can see it down on the bottom of the screen. Tweet at us. Maybe it'll make the tweets after dark rotation. And you can catch me on SEC After Dark with my man Steve over here, and Jeb Beecham. We've got a 3-man weave going over there, so catch us there. Glad to have Jeb back on that. You catch me on Believe in Georgia Dogs. We put out a show this past Tuesday. We're going to be putting out another one this coming Tuesday to start the season, and then we will be on a Thursday rotation. Our man Jake Thomas, you can catch him on Best of the West in the Tide Talk podcast. Steve, you've got the Palmcast every day, and you can catch me on the Believe Network on about 4 different shows, Illegal Motion as well. And Jake Thomas is also on the Believe Network. But we all come at you on the video screen from Willis Digital Media, and we appreciate that. So make sure you subscribe, hit that bell, and just join in on the fun, because that's what it is. This is going to be a ride, man. This is going to be a fun season. Glad to have football back at full bore. So let's rock and roll. Next week, man, SEC kicks off, but there is no more Saturdays without college football.
Yeah, and real quick before we get out of here, Dark Sage, give us a follow on Twitch. Look at our schedule. I have the schedule up over there, and you can see that we have shows every day of the week. This is actually a very special episode. It's normally on Monday night, so
yeah, we had to bump it.
Yeah,
we had to rearrange the schedule a little bit. because I'm a high school football coach, and so is Israel. So we had to kind of rearrange the schedule, and we had an opening on Thursday, so we were able to just switch some things around. So um, I am thankful that the schedule worked out. Next week, we're going to have to try to figure something out as well. So, but for Steve Willis, pinch hitting in for Craig Ladd, I am Corey Burton. This is the Beast of the East podcast on the Believe Podcast Network and Willis Digital Media, home of the Palmcast. So long. See you later. We'll see you back next week. It'll be officially SEC game week.
Yeah.
So long. Goodbye. I need a catchphrase.
1 second. Just a second. We're almost clear. I need it to refresh just to make sure that everything recorded in.